A woman lost her son in an accident. She sought out the Buddha and asked him to save her son and bring him back to life. The Buddha said, "Okay, but first you must go and beg for a handful of mustard seeds from a house that has never known suffering." She walked all day and realized there was not a single house without tears. She returned, knelt down, and began the journey of acceptance, transformation, and letting go. No one suffers without a cause. Suffering is not a punishment, but a natural result of causes and conditions. It can come from this life or from many lives before. Blessings also never come naturally. They are the result of the good, silent, small things you have sown. There are people who throughout their lives do no great evil, but just because they live thoughtlessly or speak words that hurt others, they unintentionally create karma until the day the fruit ripens, and they are shocked and ask themselves why they are suffering so much. There are also people who are not richer than anyone, not more outstanding than anyone, but they know how to live sincerely, know how to think for others, know how to be silent when necessary, and then their lives are strangely peaceful, as if there is always an invisible hand supporting them. That is not heaven showing favor. That is the blessings they have silently accumulated in their every word, every action, and every thought. So, my friend, if today you are suffering, do not just look for a way to escape suffering. Start living more kindly, living more decently, so that tomorrow you will not continue to sow seeds of suffering, because suffering is the consequence. Goodness is the path of resolution. When you understand that, you will stop blaming life, blaming others, and start looking back at yourself to transform, because resentment only makes the wound deeper. Mindfulness is the beginning of the healing journey. We will no longer ask why we suffer with a complaining voice, but will ask what we have sown to suffer like this, with the voice of someone who knows how to illuminate themselves. And then you are no longer a victim of karma, but begin to become a person who transforms karma. Suffering, when understood, will turn into compassion. Suffering, when embraced with mindfulness, will no longer be an abyss, but a step for the mind to step higher. Do not fear suffering, only fear that you go through suffering without learning anything. If today you still know pain, still shed tears for something, then please do not despair, because that very feeling is a sign that your heart is still alive and there is still a chance for revival. When you understand that, you will stop blaming life, blaming others, and start looking back at yourself to transform. No longer tormented by what others have done, no longer waiting for someone to come back to apologize, to compensate, to understand. You understand that happiness does not lie in the change of others, that lies in the transformation within yourself. You begin to let go little by little, letting go of expectations that make you tired, letting go of resentments that have imprisoned your heart for too long, letting go even of questions without answers. Why did they treat me like that? You no longer want to prove anything. You just want to live lightly, live gently, live decently, so that your heart is at peace and your life is sufficient. And when you realize suffering once drowned you, but it is also suffering itself, if you know how to return, that is the door that leads you onto the path of awakening. Even if today you feel the world has turned its back, no one understands you, no one listens to you, please remember, suffering is a very real part of human life, and you are not the only one carrying it. The rich have the suffering of the rich, pressure, loneliness, fear of loss, fear of betrayal. The poor have the suffering of the poor, deprivation, self-pity, hardship, sometimes even being looked down upon. Smart people suffer because they think too much. Gentle people suffer because they are easily hurt. People who know how to live reasonably suffer because they often yield. No one can escape suffering, but not everyone knows how to learn from suffering to step up. There was a middle-aged man, poor and hard-working since childhood. Because of poverty, he was often ridiculed by friends, slighted by family, and avoided by society. He once resented life very much, once asked heaven many times, "What did I do wrong to suffer so much?" One day, he met an old monk sitting under the shade of a tree by a stream. He asked, "Master, why do I suffer? I haven't harmed anyone. Yet my whole life is still constantly struggling." The old monk smiled and asked back, "So have you ever learned anything from those days of suffering?" The man was stunned. After a moment of silence, he replied, "I learned how to value money. I learned patience. I know how to love those poorer than me. I dare not do wrong because I know cause and effect is real." The monk nodded, his eyes lighting up. "Then you are not without blessings. A person who knows how to learn from suffering has already stepped one foot into the door of enlightenment. There are many people richer and happier than you, but they never bother to turn their heads. They are the ones who are truly pitiable. If you are suffering, but still keep your heart kind, if you are hurting, but still do not sow more hurt for anyone else, if you are desperate, but still look for a little light in the Dharma to continue, then you are already different. You are learning from suffering, and that very lesson, which no book can teach, will lead you far, deep, towards the light. And you are not alone in suffering, because everyone who passes through this life has had times when they had to shed tears. But you will be more special if you know how to learn something from that suffering and start living a life that is kinder, gentler, and more decent for yourself and for even those who once caused you pain. Because if life were full of fragrant flowers and sweet grass, who would bother to return inside to cultivate the mind? When everything is favorable, we easily live in the illusion that we are fulfilled on the right path. Only when we encounter adversity, stumbling, and loss do we realize there are lessons that cannot be learned by reason, but must be learned by terrors. It is the long sleepless nights that help us appreciate a peaceful morning. It is the times of being deeply hurt that make us learn how to love correctly. It is the days of extreme disorientation that are the times our souls begin to softly wake up and ask ourselves, is living like this right? Don't hate suffering. Look at it as a strict teacher who loves us in the most silent way, because pain does not come to destroy us, but to wash away the delusions of attachment and the arrogant ego inside us. And then when you have passed through suffering, your heart will soften, your eyes will be gentler, your heart will know how to bow down, know how to empathize, know how to love others more than ever. You no longer speak bitter words like before, no longer want to compete over right and wrong with anyone. You know that everyone has their own suffering, and if they behave badly, perhaps it is because they are hurting somewhere deep in their hearts. You no longer want to hold on to resentment. You want to live lightly, live gently, live honestly with your own heart, because you understand now life is not long enough to hate each other, and if the heart is not wide, no one can live happily in this world. You begin to learn to smile at the things that once made you cry. You learn to be silent in the face of gossip, You learn to hold others' hands instead of just focusing on protecting your own pain. You don't need to be strong immediately. Just as long as today you do not despair, just as long as you can still hear kind words, still have a flickering belief, you still have blessings. Please live on no matter how difficult it is, because who knows, today's suffering is the first step leading you to a life of peace. Have you ever asked yourself why I have corrected myself, thought well, done good, yet my life has not changed at all? Or is cause and effect not real? Our world increasingly operates on speed and efficiency. We want everything to come fast, to come clearly, to come the way we expect. But cause and effect does not live by that karma. It is silent, persistent, and especially does not run according to anyone's schedule. Because of that, after a period of living decently, they suddenly become tired, confused, and skeptical of life. And then not a few people in moments of weakness have lost the very light they had struggled to preserve over the years, sowing seeds into the ground, looking today and tomorrow, not seeing them sprout immediately. They give birth to doubt. No one denies that living kindly is right, but if you live kindly with the expectation that life will immediately respond with good things, then you are not truly living kindly. You are trading with the universe. I once met a young man, intelligent, with an ideal of living honestly. He worked hard at doing good, lived ethically, went to the temple, and practiced, but just after an incident of losing money, losing his girlfriend, and a mild illness in his body, he turned to resentment and said, living decently but receiving only bitterness is cause and effect karma, a fabricated story. At that time I just asked one question: do you live well to exchange for peace or for life to reward you immediately? He was silent and pensive. Many people sow good seeds that carry the mentality of wanting quick fruit to harvest. When the fruit does not come as expected, they are disappointed, and that very mind of desire is the biggest barrier causing the good fruit to bloom slowly. Life has times of light, times of darkness, times of mist. Cause and effect also does not always reveal itself in a way you can see with the naked eye. But if you have no faith, you will fall into the middle of the river, and the boat has not yet reached the dock. You may not have seen the light. It does not mean there's no sun ahead. You may not have encountered good things. It does not mean the good seeds you sowed are not sprouting. Remember, the stage of seeing nothing is also a part of the process. Just like a young shoot needs time to break the shell, pierce through the earth, go up, and before reaching out to the light, it must fight silently for a very long time in the darkness. You are the same. Every good deed you do is a time you forgive, a time you choose silence instead of winning or losing. Every tear you wipe for another is sowing a gentle consequence, and then one day you will be surprised when it blooms. One of the things that confuses many people most is when bad people are still rich, still healthy, still praised. You look at that person and see they live falsely, maliciously, selfishly, but they still have more things in hand than you. You ask yourself, if cause and effect is real, then why haven't they been punished yet? But my friend, fruit not yet ripe does not mean it does not exist. Ripe fruit needs enough sun, enough rain, enough wind, and enough time. Maybe that person enjoying good things today is because the good fruit from a previous life is still left over, but they are sowing bad causes every day, and that fruit is accumulating. Maybe 10 years later, maybe a future life, but certainly there is no escape. Just like a bank debt, you spend very easily today, but interest will be calculated by the day, and someday, when the deadline comes, everything must be paid in full, maybe even more. A wise person does not look at bad people and get jealous. They look to remind themselves, don't live like that even if the world applauds, because the final price may have to be paid with things that nothing can exchange for. Inner peace, health, loved ones, and inner light. Maybe you are living well and still encounter many things not as desired. But that is not a punishment. That is a test from the universe to see if you are steady enough to go to the very end of the path of kindness. When you plant a tree, storms do not naturally disappear, so the tree grows easily. On the contrary, the tree must learn to stand firm before the storm. That is what helps it be sturdy and live long. You are the same. A person living kindly is not someone who avoids the wind and storm, but someone who does not lose themselves in the wind and storm. And when you have passed through those sufferings, you are no longer the you of the old days. You have matured spiritually, are profound about human life, and are special. You are bright enough to be a refuge for others. The journey of a person living kindly is like climbing a mountain in the mist. You don't see the peak, aren't sure how far is left, don't know if you're going in the right direction, but you just take every step, every breath, every small task. Then at one moment the mist clears, the sun rises, and you will be overwhelmed because you have reached a place more beautiful than anything you imagined. The journey of a person living kindly is like climbing a mountain in the mist. You don't see the peak, aren't sure how far is left, don't know if you're going in the right direction, but you just take every step, every breath, every small task. Then at one moment the mist clears, the sun rises, and you will be overwhelmed because you have reached a place more beautiful than anything you imagined. Don't lose heart when the good fruit hasn't arrived yet. Don't give up when others don't understand you yet. Don't stop being decent just because life hasn't been decent back. Because every seed needs time, and every person living wholesomely is walking on a path that will certainly bloom. Have you ever asked yourself what truly belongs to us? This body is temporary. Fame, wealth, love, and hate all are just like bubbles at the bow of a ship, like clouds drifting across the sky. The Buddha once taught that all conditioned things are impermanent. They are phenomena, birth and death. If we understand that principle, what is there left to cling to? What is left to suffer over? Today we have the opportunity to sit together again, to reflect on a profound truth of human life. Life is a temporary realm. Everything is impermanent. Born into this world, everyone desires happiness, but few escape suffering. We suffer because of things lost, hurt because of things that haven't arrived, entangling ourselves in invisible strings of attachment. Suffering is not caused by life, but by our mind's attachment. Only when we let go of attachment, when we clearly see impermanence, can we gently walk on the journey of enlightenment. We cling to money, status, feelings, fame, and then when we lose them, we suffer immensely. But if we understand that everything is just a temporary realm, having then losing, gathering then parting, our hearts will be much lighter. Life is just a temporary realm. Don't make yourself suffer. Human connections in life are inherently fragile, like a passing breeze. When affinity comes, cherish it. When affinity goes, joyfully let go. Buddha taught that all phenomena are empty. When affinity comes, it connects. When affinity ends, it dissolves. Attachment only brings suffering. Letting go is liberation. In love, suffering is not because someone else failed us, but because we haven't learned how to let go. If we forever cling to the past, we are only imprisoning ourselves in suffering. When the mind lets go, the heart immediately finds peace. People often think that accepting impermanence is giving up, is being indifferent to life, but that is not so. Accepting impermanence is so we know how to cherish what we have even more. If we know a flower will eventually fade, we will cherish it even more when it is in full bloom. If we understand that a loved one will also eventually leave us, we will spend more time loving, so we don't have to regret when they are gone. When the mind dwells in the present, when we understand that everything will change, we will no longer be terrified by the fluctuations in life. Like a lake without ripples, like a clear blue sky, our minds will also be quietly peaceful, not entangled in regrets or sorrows. Impermanence is not something to be afraid of, but is the very key helping us open the door of liberation from suffering. Human life is like a dream. Life is like a passing breeze, but humans are always immersed in lust, craving things beyond their ability. The poor wish to be rich, the rich want power. Those with power wish for immortality, and so the wheel of ambition never stops. And that very ambition drags humans into the endless sea of suffering. Humans often mistakenly think that just by getting what they want, happiness will naturally come. But do we ever ask ourselves, when we get it, are we truly satisfied, or do we then continue to crave more? A person wishes for a roof to cover the rain and sun. When they have it, they wish for a bigger house. When they have a big house, they want more land and wealth. Bottomless greed is like a deep pit. The more you fill it, the emptier it gets. Only when we know enough can the mind be at peace. Sufficiency does not lie in external material things, but in satisfaction and contentment from within. A person who knows enough amidst poverty is happier than a wealthy person whose heart is always uneasy. A simple bowl of rice eaten with appreciation tastes better than delicacies eaten with a heart full of worrying. Only when we let go of some ambition, accept what we have, and cherish the present moment, can we escape suffering. Because letting the mind be bound to unworthy things, a careless look, a thoughtless word, a petty action, can also make our mind wobble and be sorrowful for many days. Humans easily let their minds be bound to petty things and then torment themselves. We suffer because of criticism, get annoyed because of injustice, suffer because of losses, without realizing that all those things are just like clouds drifting in the sky, flashing by and then leaving. Excessive worrying only exhausts us without helping to change anything. The most important thing is still living well with the present, because the future is something ungraspable, but today is passing by every moment. The future has not arrived, but if we live well today, tomorrow will naturally arrange itself. Fame and profit and feelings, past and future, all are just waves in the human heart. When we cling to them, we are like a small boat swept away by waves, unable to find the shore. But if we know how to put it down, accept everything coming and going as a natural law, then no matter how big the waves are, the mind remains as calm as the surface of an autumn lake without ripples, without wavering, peacefully passing through gains and losses, meetings and partings. When affinity comes, joyfully welcome it. When affinity goes, gently let go. Every coming and going has its causes and conditions. When causes and conditions converge, all things harmonize, people meet, blessings appear before our eyes. When causes and conditions dissolve, 10,000 things change, separation happens. One cannot force it. What you have in your hand today, body, wealth, kinship, fame, all are temporary affinities. They come when conditions are sufficient, go when conditions run out. If you cling, trying to hold on, you inevitably bring suffering into your heart. What is ours was never ours. What is not ours will never belong to us. People, because of clinging to fame and profit, generate greed and love, competing to win or lose. When they lose it, they suffer and grieve. People, because of clinging to feelings, become infatuated and lingering, unable to let go. Remember that every meeting in this world is just like waves in the ocean. People who once loved each other may one day have to part ways. When affinity is round, we meet. When affinity disperses, we separate. That is natural law. If you forever regret a person or a past love, it is no different from hugging a faded flower and crying. While out there, spring is still brilliantly blooming. People, because of clinging to the past, forever live in pain. But the past is just a shadow in the mind. It is no longer the reality of the present. No matter how much you regret, how much you wish to turn back time, you cannot do it. Like a river that has flowed past, the water is gone and cannot flow back to the source. Let things that have passed be like drifting clouds, gently dissolving. People, because of clinging to the future, worry endlessly, but the future has not yet arrived. Why do we tie our minds to things that haven't happened? Like a seed in the ground. If there are enough good conditions, it will naturally sprout. Worrying or fear does not make the seed grow faster, but only makes our minds more troubled. Live fully with the present moment. When affinity comes, joyfully accept it. Cherish what you have. When affinity goes, gently let go. No regrets, no complaining. Just like a flower blooming when spring comes, quietly falling when autumn arrives, without suffering, without entanglement. If we know how to let go, the mind will naturally be at peace. If we no longer cling, this life will be as light as drifting clouds. Light up wisdom yourself, so that in this temporary realm the mind remains as quiet as an autumn lake, unmoved, unconfused, peacefully passing through gains, losses, meetings, and partings, understanding cause and effect to live in peace. In this life, nothing happens by accident. Everything we encounter, whether happiness or suffering, has its reason. The law of cause and effect operates naturally, favoring no one, omitting no one. If we live kindly and sincerely, we will receive peace. If we live selfishly, causing hurt to others, we will encounter unsatisfactory things. Cause and effect is not to punish anyone, but is just the natural operation of life. When encountering difficulties, humans tend to complain and blame. But instead of asking, "Why am I suffering?" we should ask ourselves what we have done to lead to this result, understanding that we will reduce resentment and know how to change ourselves to create a better future. A person living in anger and envy all their life will only encounter trouble. A person who knows how to love and share will gradually see life becoming gentler. This life is always changing. Nothing is forever. What we have today may be lost tomorrow. But if we understand cause and effect, we will no longer cling or worrying too much. We understand that losing something may be because the affinity has ended, and instead of suffering, we learn to accept. When affinity comes, accept. When affinity goes, gently let go. Living in accordance with cause and effect is knowing how to adjust oneself, living kindly, being grateful for what one has, and accepting what cannot be changed. When understanding that, we will reduce troubles and find peace within our own souls. Letting go so the mind can be light. Letting go does not mean losing, but liberation. Those who do not yet understand the way often think that letting go is giving up what belongs to them, is loss, is suffering a disadvantage. But actually, letting go in Buddhist teachings is not giving up life, but giving up the binding of the mind. Letting go does not mean being indifferent or cold to life, but living in the midst of life without letting the mind be tied by troubles and worries. Sentient beings suffer because of attachment to material things. Fame, feelings, past, future, all are invisible strings tying humans down. Keep holding on, keep clinging, keep fearing loss, so that each day passes, the mind becomes heavier and more uneasy. The Buddha taught that if you want to find peace, first you must know how to let go. Let go of greed, love, let go of anger, let go of delusion. Then the mind can be free. When a person's heart is no longer disturbed by desires, anger, or resentment, naturally they will feel light and serene. To let go, first one must contemplate the nature of all things. Everything in this world is formed by causes and conditions, and when causes and conditions end, everything dissolves accordingly. There is nothing that permanently belongs to us, nor is there anything that remains unchanged forever. Like flowing water, like clouds in the sky, everything temporarily converges and then disperses. If we understand this, we will no longer be stubborn, no longer suffer when losing something in life. Contemplating impermanence is also a way to practice letting go. Impermanence is the nature of the world. This body is impermanent. This wealth is impermanent. The relationships we have are also impermanent. Today we may be rich, tomorrow empty-handed. The beloved ones beside us today may not be beside us tomorrow. If we do not accept impermanence, we will forever be immersed in suffering. But if we understand that everything will change, we will no longer fear or suffer because of loss. In life, we often suffer because we always want more than what we have. But when we know enough, we will no longer chase after external things and lose inner peace. Contentment is not accepting life without striving to rise, but knowing how to cherish what we have and not letting our hearts be dominated by endless desires. An important factor helping us practice letting go is nurturing a compassionate heart. When the heart is full of compassion, we will no longer hold on to anger and blame, no longer resent those who have hurt us. The person holding on to hatred is the one tying themselves in suffering. When we forgive, we not only liberate others, but also liberate ourselves. Knowing how to love, knowing how to forgive, our hearts will be lighter, no longer tormented by attachments. Letting go is not a story of one morning or one afternoon, but a persistent practice in daily life. Every day we contemplate to realize the unnecessary things we are trying to keep, little by little putting them down, little by little feeling lighter. One day, when the mind is no longer entangled, no longer bound, we will see that life has inherently been peaceful for a long time. Life is inherently just a temporary realm, like clouds drifting in the sky, like water flowing through a stream. Everything will pass. What we try to grasp today, tomorrow may vanish. What we consider ours is actually just a temporary combination of affinities. If we cling, we suffer. If we let go, we are free. Only when we understand the impermanent nature of all things can we live gently, not bound by sorrows. Let your heart open wide. Receive everything like passing breezes. When it comes, be joyful. When it goes, be calm. Don't let worries and anger blur the peace in the mind, hoping that after listening to this lecture, everyone will find a little peace for themselves. Live like a flower in the midst of life, silently spreading fragrance without caring about the swirling wind. Don't chase after illusions of fame or bindings of the past and future. When the mind is no longer entangled, when we learn how to let go of useless troubles, that is when we truly touch true happiness. Remember that the Buddha always taught that all things are impermanent. A human body is hard to get. The true Dharma is hard to hear. Being born as a human is already a great blessing. Knowing the Buddha Dharma is an even rarer good affinity. Therefore, do not let life pass in ignorance. Live so that every passing day has meaning, so that when closing this life, we have no regrets. Wishing everyone to always be at peace and free, body and mind pure, wisdom bright on the journey of life. The later one gets, the more one sees that gentleness is a blessing and silence is wisdom. The more one goes through the ups and downs of life, the more one deeply realizes one thing. Gentleness is not weakness, but a type of silent blessing, and silence is not hindrance, but wisdom that knows how to look far and wide. People say being too gentle turns into stupidity, but actually gentleness has never been a sin. It's just that in a world that is too pragmatic, kindness is sometimes seen as foolishness. But my friend, don't be afraid to be a gentle person, because ultimately gentleness is what keeps peace for the inner mind, the key leading the way to happiness. A gentle person is not someone who doesn't know how to get angry, that knows how to forbear. Not someone who doesn't know how to fight but chooses to let go. In their hearts, there is always a wide sky for forgiveness and eyes that know how to look at people with a mind free of resentment. The longer one lives, the more one understands that a gentle person is a blessed person. That blessing is not shown in material wealth, but in a peaceful smile amidst so many changes. That blessing is not noisy, not brilliant, but silent like morning dew on the tip of a blade of grass, quiet but pure, humble but profound. And it doesn't come from defeating others, but from defeating oneself. No need to outdo anyone with a word. No need to prove anything to the world. Just needing that every night when closing eyes, the heart is still serene, not worrying about anything, not ashamed before conscience, not resentful towards people. It is when we can still be gentle amidst so much bitterness, still choose kindness even though we've been disappointed, still smile at things that make ordinary people angry, nor losing our own kindness just because someone is not good. A person with blessings is someone who can be stable in mind, not rippled by the world's tongues. They clearly understand life is impermanent. People are affinities. Gain and loss are inherently just a breath. So they let go, but it is not giving up. They are silent, but it is not hindrance. They are just living a life deep enough not to need to show off. understanding enough not to need to compete, and that very peace is what makes them different in this busy world. In life, sometimes we encounter simple people quietly walking through the years without noise, but leaving an indelible mark in others' hearts. They don't fight over winning or losing, don't justify right or wrong, just live a life that is gentle, forbearing, and full of tolerance. Some people think living gently is suffering a disadvantage. Silence is hindrance, but only when witnessing a life that has gone through enough prosperity and loss and still keeps a benevolent heart. Do we understand gentleness is a blessing and silence is wisdom? A small story about an old lady in a poor village who lost everything but still opened her arms to forgive the person who once betrayed her will make you go quiet for a moment to look back at yourself. Mrs. Mann lived at the end of the village. Her house was poor and simple, but always neat and warm. She wasn't rich, had no descendants beside her, but everyone loved her because she lived so gently. In the past, she used to be well off, but out of compassion, she put her name down to help a cousin borrow money to open a rice shop. In the end, that person took all the money and ran away. She was empty-handed and had to sell her house to return to her ancestral land. People felt sorry and asked if she was resentful. She just shook her head. Resentment makes the heart suffer. I lost property, but shouldn't lose the good heart too. A few years later, the cousin returned, wife dead, children young, body ruined, nowhere to turn. No one dared to take him in, only Mrs. Mann, who had lost everything, opened the door to welcome him. People asked why she still nurtured him. She just smiled. Forgiving people is opening the door for one's own heart. All her life she didn't get angry at anyone, didn't speak ill of anyone, didn't hurt anyone. She lived gently, and everyone liked her. When she died, the whole village voluntarily contributed money for the funeral. The cousin from years ago knelt by the grave crying jokingly, "I stole your property, but you gave me a whole life of kindness." She is gone. I just understood. Gentleness is a blessing, and a tolerant heart is what makes a human being worth remembering forever. Human life is like a vast field. Whatever one sows, sooner or later one reaps. Those who choose to sow anger will harvest fatigue. Those who choose to sow love will receive tenderness. Initially, people who live gently often encounter disadvantages, but later blessings will naturally come. People say arguing with a stubborn person is no different than throwing stones into mud. The more you throw, the dirtier it gets. The more you step, the deeper you sink. So the wise choose silence, not because they don't know, but because they don't want to dirty their own minds. Silence is also a way to listen to oneself in a world where everyone wants to speak, to prove, to win or lose. Silence to clearly understand what is important, what needs to be let go. A man was harmed by a colleague, lost his position just when his career was rising like a kite. Friends and relatives were all indignant, advising him to sue, resist, retaliate. But he just quietly left, didn't justify a word nor recount right or wrong. He started again from zero with calloused hands and an inner mind free of resentment. Day by day, he silently rebuilt with his own ability, quality, and a calmness that no anger could break. 5 years later, the person who harmed him was exposed. Everything was revealed, and he was invited back not only to the old position, but higher, more solid, and more respected. Everyone was surprised to see him still smiling that gentle smile of the past. Someone asked, "Why didn't you speak up when you were only harmed?" He just said, "The louder you scream, the more it obscures the truth. I chose silence, so justice has a way to go. One doesn't need to win by being nosy, just need to win with time and character. The later one gets, the more one sees that life doesn't need too many words nor too many roles. Just need to live decently, live gently, keep silence in the soul, and that is already a life of peace and joy. Let your gentleness be the root that generates blessings, and let your silence be the shelter of wisdom, because ultimately only those with strong enough inner minds can choose kindness instead of hostility, choose silence instead of confrontation. There are burdens not because they are too heavy, but because we have carried them too long. It could be worries about food and clothing, insecurities hidden in the heart, or nameless things that weigh on our shoulders every morning we wake up. There are things that seem small, but when kept in the heart forever, they also become bindings. Each of us will eventually come to a time when we must learn to let go, not to give up, but to lighten the heart, because letting go at the right time makes life less painful. We often think that being strong means holding on for a long time, bracing ourselves well, and having to walk no matter how tired we are. But sometimes true strength lies in letting go. Letting go does not mean failure. Letting go is when we have the courage to tell ourselves, it's time to put down old burdens, stop to listen to the heart with a peaceful soul. We cannot go on if we keep replaying old things. We cannot be happy if the mind still contains tangles. And then we understand there are things we let go of not because they aren't important, but because we are too tired to continue carrying them. Letting go to know that we also deserve peace. Some people live a whole life still believing that peace is a luxury, a reward for those who are outstanding, or only for the lucky. But no, peace is the right of every human being. We may not be wealthy, not perfect, not popular, but we still have the right to live a serene life. It is true that life does not roll out a red carpet for anyone and cannot avoid all losses and disadvantages. But living does not mean having to constantly endure. Life sometimes is strange. We keep thinking we have to tense up to be called strong, must grit our teeth and step to be resilient. But then we start seeing ourselves becoming crankier, sadder more often, silently crying in the middle of the night more often. Just like that, day after day, bracing to prove we are okay, bracing so as not to bother others, bracing to keep the roles that life forces us to wear, but then the back, no matter how straight, has a time when it bends, because every heart, no matter how strong, has a time when it sags due to exhaustion. There are burdens no one forces us to carry, but we still carry, just because we are afraid that if we put them down, no one else will pick them up. We think we are strong, but actually deep in our hearts is just a child trying not to burst into tears, bracing forever, until a point where it's not about having no strength left, but having no reason to continue bracing. There are things that when inside them we think they are the whole sky, but when we dare to step out we discover they are just a small corner of the vast world out there. Letting go is choosing again, taking a step back to see life still has many other paths. Letting go is not giving up everything, but putting down things that are exhausting us. Letting go of the bracing roles that have made our hearts tired. There was an old man living in a small village by the mountain. Every week he trudged down to the market in the town below to buy a few bags of rice and then quietly carried them back up the slope home, crossing a small stream. Every time crossing the stream, he had to walk very slowly, because if he walked fast, the strong water could wash away the bags of rice. If he stepped hastily, he himself would slip and fall. People asked him, "Why not ask for help? Rice is heavy and the road is hard." He just smiled lightly, calm as clouds. "I choose to carry little by little, but get to the destination. Better than trying to carry a lot and then having to leave it halfway." This life is also like that. Everyone carries bags of rice on their backs. It could be responsibility, worries, old memories, or unfinished dreams. Some people try to hug it all, carry lots and lots, but haven't finished the road yet and are tired, slipped, gave up. A wise person is not someone who carries a lot, but someone who knows how to let go to walk the full path and reach the dock. Because on the boat of life, no one rows forever with a heavy heart. The more one hugs, the higher the water rises. The heavier the load, the more the boat rocks. There are worries we think we need to keep, but actually are just stones tied to our feet. When wading through the river, if you don't let go, you sink. If you don't stop, you get exhausted. Life does not demand us to be stronger than others, but to be lighter than ourselves of yesterday. Just let go a little. Only then do we feel the shoulders that haven't breathed for a long time. Just let go a little. Only then do we hear the wind blowing through the soul and see we are still alive. There are road segments where whoever goes first isn't a saint, but whoever goes to the end with an intact heart is. Letting go is saving oneself from a sinking boat, is dropping heavy bags of rice to save strength to reach the shore. No one lives for us, and no one endures the underground waves in our hearts for us. So if you feel tired, let go a little, and when you let go, you realize you have carried too heavy a load for so many years. That burden is not always visible to the eye. It is long sleepless nights. It is sighs no one hears. It is times smiling, while inside just wanting to give up. Yet we still try because afraid others will be sad, try because afraid of failing, try to the point of forgetting to ask if we are still ourselves. We grow up in a world where everyone talks about effort, success, excellence. Few teach us that leisure is also a value, that living a decent life just enough, not jostling, is not cowardice, but a very profound type of wisdom. There are things we have to spend many years to have enough courage to put down, not because we are weak, but because we understand peace has never been something that comes with constant praising. In a temple, an old monk lived with his only disciple. One day, the disciple knelt at the teacher's feet, eyes full of tears. "Master, I have tried very hard, but why is my heart still heavy? I chant sutras, meditate, work hard. Why haven't the sorrows in me been put down yet?" The old monk said nothing, just leisurely poured 2 cups of tea. He picked one up, gave it to the novice monk, then said, "Pour more water in." The novice monk was surprised. "But master, the cup is already full. How can I pour more?" The monk smiled gently. "Then you tell me how peace can be put into an inner mind that is already too full." The novice monk bowed his head in silence. The teacher gently continued, "You don't lack effort. don't lack a good heart, you are just lacking a space. Only when you dare to pour out some of the fullness in your heart will peace have a place to enter. No one walks on the path of liberation with hands still hugging old packages of luggage. Putting down is not giving up. Letting go is returning to yourself. A lighter person to step through suffering. Only when letting go at the right time do we step lightly midst the world without drifting with it. This life does not force us to be perfect, only hopes we understand ourselves and love ourselves. No one can live lightly when the mind is full of entanglements, and no one is truly free if hands keep clutching old things. Letting go is not leaving the world, but learning how to walk through it without the heart suffering anymore. Letting go at the right time is knowing when to stop and knowing what to keep to continue walking, because ultimately, the most precious thing in a human life is not what we possess, but a soul that knows how to heal, knows how to let go, knows how to be peaceful amidst life. In the impermanent human realm, there is a law operating silently, but absolutely fairly. That is the law of cause and effect. Even though invisible to the eye, ungraspable by hand, that law still operates orderly like shadow following form, like echo following sound. A person who understands cause and effect is cautious in every thought, word, and behavior. A person who does not yet understand cause and effect lives loosely, relying on the present while disregarding consequences later. Good and evil, blessing and disaster, all have a root cause, so whatever cause, reap that fruit. Have you ever asked yourself why wicked people still live happily, while gentle people suffer so much? But few know that blessings or disasters are not confined to one life. Some people live kindly, but suffering surrounds them. That is because old karma still lingers. Some live wickedly, but still have wealth. That is because blessings from previous lives have not yet run out. When blessings run out, retribution will appear. When karma is paid off, light will come. So cause and effect is not a punishment nor a reward, but a very fair and accurate natural law. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha taught that sentient beings are owners of karma, heirs of karma, born of karma, live relying on karma, and die also because of karma, meaning everything we encounter today, from happiness to suffering, is the consequence of what we have done in the past and are doing in the present. Karma is invisible energy created from body, speech, and mind. Every action, word, or even a thought is a seed sown into the field of the mind. When conditions are sufficient, that seed will sprout and bear fruit, whether good or evil. The ancients had a saying, "Good has good reward, evil has evil reward. If it hasn't rewarded yet, it's because the time hasn't come." A person living kindly may not enjoy blessings in this life, but certainly the future will be peaceful. Those doing evil, even if they haven't met disaster, when the cause is sufficient, the fruit will ripen. No one can hide, no one can bribe or bargain with the law of heaven. Although heaven and earth are vast, the book of merits and sins of each person is never missing. There are stories that seem like legends, but reflect truthfully profound lessons about the law of cause and effect. The story of Liu Daran of the Tang dynasty is a typical example. He was a high official, powerful and famous, but inside he was a cruel person, specializing in harming others to gather for himself. One day, meeting a monk, he was warned about deep retribution later. The monk gave him a stone and said, "When karma comes, the stone will break." Liu Daran laughed mockingly, not believing. But then many years later, when his only son contracted a strange disease and died in pain, the stone broke into dust. Liu Daran was horrified to realize the monk's words were true. Finally, he gave up his official post to go to the temple to practice, hoping to redeem his sins of the past. Cause and effect spares no one, whether noble or commoner. In Buddhism, there are 3 types of karmic retribution. Immediate retribution, retribution happening right in this life. Next life retribution, retribution happening in the next life. And subsequent retribution, retribution happening in many lives later. Therefore, do not rush to conclude when seeing gentle people meeting accidents, evil people enjoying blessings. Look with the eyes of a practitioner to clearly see that the law of cause and effect operates along the length of time, not just in a short life. There is another touching story about Tong Men, a talented scholar in the Ming Dynasty. He was famous for his talent in poetry and handsome appearance, but was an ungrateful person in love. Many young women suffered because of him. Some committed suicide, some held resentment all their lives. But Tong Men was still carefree, not a bit remorseful. One day, meeting an old beggar, he warned, "You will love in this life. Next life you will pay in full." Tong Men laughed blandly, not believing, but after dying, he was reincarnated as a little girl, having to go through a life of being betrayed, suffering emotional pain just like what he had caused. At the end of life, that girl became a nun, took the Dharma name Tinyan, and lived a life of repentance. Such stories are not to scare but to remind that every behavior, word, thought, even the smallest, leaves a trace in the flow of cause and effect. We cannot escape the law of cause and effect, but can transform it by living kindly, nurturing compassion, and letting go of resentments in the heart. Buddha taught, if you want to know the cause of the previous life, look at the result of this life. If you want to know the result of the next life, look at the present cause. A person who knows how to practice will not blame fate, will not complain about themselves, but will use every present breath to sow good seeds, because they understand that the present is the most fertile land to sow good causes for the future. When understanding the law of cause and effect, we will know how to live more carefully, not arrogant because of praise, not resentful because of criticism, not doing wrong for profit, not giving up good deeds because of difficulty. A person who understands cause and effect lives a life not ashamed before heaven and earth, not afraid of ups and downs, because their mind always dwells in goodness and wisdom. In infinite lives, we were once the ones who hurt others, also once the victims who were hurt. But in this life, if we awakened, know how to stop and transform, then we will no longer be swept away by the cycle of birth and death. That is the greatest value that understanding cause and effect brings, helping us return to live with our good original mind and liberate ourselves from all suffering created by ourselves. Remember, cause and effect does not wait until the next life to ripen. Sometimes it appears right in a look, a word, an action of the present. Sowing causes in every moment will reap corresponding fruits in every stage of life. Life is a river. We are the ones steering. If we know how to navigate, despite wind and waves, we can still dock peacefully. So don't be negligent because cause and effect hasn't ripened yet. Don't give up because others do evil. Live a life worth living, a meaningful life by sowing love, spreading kindness, and behaving from the heart, because ultimately cause and effect omits no one, nor favors anyone. Everything we do will return to us like shadow following form, like an echo in a deep cave. A person who understands the way does not live waiting for blessings, but lives like a lamp silently shining. No need for people to praise, expecting no one to respond. Simply living so that conscience does not remorse. My mind is at peace, and my heart is not ashamed before life. That is enough. That is a blessing. That is the path of liberation from all suffering, from every small thought and consciousness. In this flashy world, few believe in cause and effect while living amidst temporary glories, and few bother to look deep into suffering to see that they themselves sowed seeds for those pains in infinite past lives. There was a lay Buddhist named Dharma for 30 years living a decent life, but life remained constantly struggling. Poverty and illness clung, children were mischievous, business failed. There were times he burst into tears in the middle of the night, looking up to the sky and exclaiming, "Buddha, I didn't do anything wrong. Why is my life so miserable?" A fellow practitioner advised him, "Seek a true master to ask for guidance." That day, Dharma found a small hermitage deep in the forest where an old monk lived in seclusion. The old monk quietly listened to his confidences, then pointed to an ancient tree next to the hermitage and said, "Do you see that tree? More than 100 years ago, a bow accidentally cut a small tree stump. Here, that life seed was deprived, but instead of resentment, it silently accepted the disaster, silently entering the cycle of reincarnation. This life it returns as this ancient tree, which is the very tree stump cut in the past. It doesn't blame, doesn't get angry, just silently continues the life journey." Karmic retribution is not a punishment, but a feedback of the energy flow we have sown. If you once made others suffer, then this life you must pay with your very form and fate. Hearing this, Dharma burst into tears. He remembered when he was 18, because of poverty. He once beat a hard-working wife just because the meal lacked salt. That night, the wife holding her pregnant belly left, never to return. The fetus in her belly was perhaps also a wrong soul not yet soothed. The old monk said gently, "If you know your fault, then repent from here. There is no karma that cannot be resolved. Just need your mind to be sincere enough, remorseful enough, vowed enough. From now on, living a life not harming anyone anymore, knowing how to sow good seeds, knowing how to water with compassion, then you yourself will be the one saving yourself from the sea of suffering of reincarnation." From then on, Dharma no longer complained about life. Every morning he woke up, chanted a sutra, then went to the market to give away small loaves of bread. He took care of the sick in the poor neighborhood, comforted those who lost loved ones, spoke kind words to every child. Although not rich, he lived with a peaceful mind. When closing his eyes, he smiled and left, because he knew this time he no longer carried resentment, but only the pure fragrance of a life of transformation. Human life is a long lodging trip. A Zen master once said, "Being human is a miracle, but being human with right view is extremely rare. Human body is hard to get. Buddha Dharma is hard to hear." That is the earnest reminder that the Buddha left for millions of living beings rolling in the 6 realms of reincarnation. Not everyone has the blessed affinity. Asking to be human again is even rarer, to have the affinity to meet Buddha Dharma. Therefore, having a human body, but not practicing is wasting a life, letting life fall into the hands of karmic force, getting lost in the desert of ignorance. Once someone came to ask the Buddha, "World-honored one, why do I practice forever, but life is still suffering, body is still sick, family is still uneasy?" Buddha did not answer immediately, just reached out to grab a handful of small dirt from under his feet and asked back, "My child, is the dirt in my hand more or the dirt on the whole great earth more?" That person was bewildered, then answered, "World-honored one, how can the dirt in your hand compare to the vast ground?" Buddha smiled compassionately. "Just like that, the karma you are carrying now is only like a small handful of dirt, while the karma you created from infinite lives is like that vast ground. How many injustices have you sown? How many lives have you harmed? How much suffering have you caused? Do you remember all of it? So don't rush to blame life, but diligently practice, because practicing is the only way to overcome the consequences from the old causes you once sowed." That person heard and burst into tears. One life sowing, 10,000 lives meeting in the cycle of reincarnation. No one has not once been father, mother, wife, child of each other, but when karmic force has separated, love turns into resentment. Husband and wife turn into karmic enemies. Relatives turn into life debts. Therefore, Buddha taught all phenomena are born of affinity and also die of affinity. Knowing to let go is being free. Clinging is forever falling. A story tells that there was a young monk named Thinhai. Every time he sat in meditation, his heart ached his teary. Although the reason was unclear, whenever the temple bell rang, his heart sank, a sadness deep without bottom. One night, while meditating, Thinhai saw a strange dream. There was a young woman with teary eyes holding a blood-stained white handkerchief. She said, "You left me while I was pregnant. You went to practice. You practiced purely, but I died in humiliation." That dream kept repeating. Thinhai sought his teacher, recounting everything. The old monk pondered and then taught, "You should set up an altar for repentance. Set up a tablet for the woman in the dream. This life you are a monk. Previous lives you were a philandering and ungrateful person, causing a pregnant person to be left in the middle of the market of life. That karma hasn't been resolved. That injustice hasn't dissolved. Then your mind will never be pure." Thinhai listened to the teacher and repented for 49 consecutive days, every day chanting sutras dedicating merits to those he once made suffer, even those he had never met. On the 50th night, he dreamed of seeing that woman smiling, holding the child, turning away in a brilliant golden light. Since then his heart no longer ached, his mind no longer tormented, his steps of practice became infinitely serene. The accumulation of one life opens up thousands of lives. Dear friend, if today you are still suffering, please don't blame heaven, don't blame life, but look back at what we have sown for this life. If today you are still alive, still breathing, still knowing Buddha Dharma, that is no small blessing. So don't waste another human life in resentment and anger. Cause and effect is never lost. Reincarnation is not illusory, and karmic force is the most truthful mirror reflecting what we have created. But also don't forget, any karma can be transformed if our mind has enough self-awareness, wisdom, and effort to return. Practicing is transforming karma, repenting self-resolving. Compassion is the key opening the door of reincarnation, and mindfulness is the torch in the dark night of ignorance. On a quiet autumn day in an ancient temple located on the slope of Tintam Mountain, a man with graying hair came to kneel at the feet of the Buddha statue. He was silent, saying nothing, just staring into the compassionate eyes of the world-honored one. The abbot, over 70, walked to his side and asked, "Good man, you have something troubling you?" The man looked up, eyes glistening with tears. "Master, all my life I live not wickedly. Why do I meet only misfortune? I don't kill, don't steal, never did anything against conscience, yet my wife died early. My son had an accident, myself sick and tormented. I feel it's so unfair, Master." The monk just kept silent, then leisurely asked, "Do you remember over 20 years ago, when you were young, you once sheltered a beggar? So the suffering you carry today is not injustice, but the past coming to demand payment." The man shed tears, bowing his head in repentance, and also from that day, he decided to stay at the temple, sweeping the yard, chanting sutras, lighting candles every afternoon. In the sound of the wooden fish echoing, he gradually learned to live gently, no longer blaming. Someone asked, if karmic force is created by oneself, can one transform it oneself? The answer is yes, but it must start from sincere repentance and firm will. In the Repentance Sutra, Buddha taught, if one knows how to repent, admits mistakes and corrects them, evil karma is like clouds dispersing, the sky becomes bright again. A sentence of Buddha recitation, if emanating from a sincere heart, can shake the invisible realm. A sincere word of repentance can resolve hundreds of lives of delusion. Once there was a man named Hian Vuong, used to be greedy, killing, deceiving. After an accident, body crippled, he crawled to the temple asking to practice. At first, no one believed he could reform, but he still bowed to Buddha and chanted sutras day and night, every step engraving repentance in the heart. 10 years later, he became a respectable teacher, bringing moral principles to move hundreds of people to return to the path of goodness. Transforming karma is not a miracle happening in one night. It is a journey of sincerity, a sweat dropping every day, of humble eyes looking back at oneself, and of a vow unshaken before worldly challenges. A person who knows how to transform karma, someone who dares to look into their wound and not complain, is someone who knows that no mountain cannot be crossed. Only a heart not persistent enough, is someone who understands that every second, every minute, living kindly is paving the way for a new life, lighter and more peaceful. In the sunset covering the meditation gate, a sound of the wooden fish rang out. The pilgrim looked up, quietly listened, and then silently clasped hands. In that moment, they knew that karma is not fate, but a lesson, and we can graduate from that lesson with awakening and earnest vow.